I'm gonna say it straight up. Zoro's left eye is mysteriously sealed. Not blinded, not scarred, but sealed. And when it finally opens, Zoro's enemies will maybe shake a little bit. You know how Oda loves to hide the craziest plot twists right in front of our faces? Shanks being a celestial dragon, Luffy's fruit not being Gomu Gomu, all those that's too wild ideas that ended up being true? Well, this might be that level of reveal for Zoro, because that eye might be tied to something ancient, something demonic, something that could make Zoro not just the world's greatest swordsman, but something far more dangerous. And before you call me crazy, just think about this. Oda planned for Zoro to lose or change his eye decades ago, literally in the early 2000s, before time skip was even a thing. And he's refused to explain it ever since. No flashback, no dialogue, not even a gag about it. That's not how Oda plants a ticking time bomb. So here's the question I want to ask. What if Zoro's left eye is more than a wound? What if it's the key to his greatest power and his greatest curse? Because the deeper I went, the more everything started connecting. From Mihawk's training to Ashura's demonic form to the one-eyed legends and real-world myth that Oda constantly borrows from. Every thread leads back to one thing. That eye is not closed by accident. And when Oda finally decides to open it, we might see the moment Zoro stops being human. Alright, before I throw you into the deep end of cursed swords and sealed powers, let's rewind. Because understanding what we know is the only way to appreciate what's being hidden. After the time skip, Zoro reappears with a scar slicing vertically down his left eye, the eye permanently closed like it's been stitched to close a wound. 2 years under the greatest swordsman alive, Dracula Mihawk, and our guy comes back looking like he wrestled a demon and didn't quite win. But here's what's weird. Nobody asks him about it. Not Luffy, not Sanji, not even Nami, who would absolutely grill him about something that obvious. The entire crew just moves on, which if you know Oda is the first red flag. He never ignores something unless he's saving it. And the thing that makes this even crazier? Oda himself confirmed in interviews that he had planned for Zoro to lose an eye, or something related to it, way back in the early 2000s. That's nearly a decade before it happened, meaning this was a setup, a seed planted for a payoff we still haven't seen. Now, during the time skip, Zoro trained on Kuraigana Island, the gothic graveyard of Mihawk's castle, surrounded by humanoid beasts called human drills that mimic fighting styles they observe. This is the perfect training hell for a swordsman like Zoro, and we're told that Mihawk pushed him to the absolute brink, the kind of training that should have broken his body and sharpened his will. So the logical surface-level explanation is that the scar came from training. Maybe Mihawk sliced him once too many times, or maybe Zoro took a sword to the face during a spar. Reasonable, right? But the problem is that doesn't fit the way Oda frames it, because if the injury was normal, Oda would have shown it, or Zoro would have brushed it off with a line like, I messed up training with Mihawk. Instead, absolute silence. That's when I realized the scar is there to warn us of what he gained, and the setting, Kuraigana Island, matters here. That place is straight up haunted. Gothic towers, black cats, fog, crucifix statues. It's literally named after Kurai, darkness, and Gana, sad song. It's the most un-One Piece-like island in the story. What if Mihawk was training Zoro to control something inside him? Something born during Eni's lobby when Zoro first unleashed that demonic Ashura form? Because think about it, that was the first and only time we saw Zoro manifest extra heads and arms like an actual yokai. After that, Oda never revisited it because it was something that terrified even Zoro himself. So by the time the time skip ends, Zoro's containment is perfected. That scar is really a seal. Okay, so let's start building this. We know Oda never gives a scar without a reason. Every mark in One Piece carries meaning. Shanks' eye scars came from Blackbeard, Luffy's chest scar from Akainu. Even Sanji's eyebrow switch after the time skip hinted at a deeper lineage twist. So for Zoro, one of the most visually obvious yet unexplained scars in the series? Now, the obvious theory, the one fans usually start with, is that the eye's just damaged. Maybe Mihawk hit him, maybe he pushed too hard in training, maybe he's blind in that eye. That's neat and simple, but it doesn't fit Zoro's trajectory as a character. Zoro's entire story is about balance, between discipline and madness, control and chaos. And when you look at his powers, that balance theme becomes glaringly clear. The Ashura technique is a manifestation of rage, will, and spiritual pressure so dense that it becomes visible. Oda literally drew Zoro sprouting extra heads and arms like a wrathful deity from Buddhist lore as a spiritual possession. And here's the kicker. In Eastern mythology, Asura are fallen celestial beings, consumed by endless combat. They fight because they can't stop. They represent power that constantly teeters between divine purpose and demonic obsession. That's also Zoro's whole identity. So what if that left eye is the gate that keeps the Asura inside? During the time skip, Mihawk could have helped Zoro seal that energy away, forcing him to fight with pure technique until he's worthy of controlling the demon demon again. That would explain Mihawk's stoic attitude. He's refining a weapon that could surpass him. And get this, Mihawk himself is a walking symbol of the all-seeing eye. His epithet is literally hawk eyes, vision sharper than anyone in the world. So what if the training involved awakening true perception, some advanced form of observation haki, or even something beyond it? And in the process, Zoro tapped into something ancient that his body couldn't handle yet? Mihawk might have realized that if Zoro's eye remained open, he'd lose control completely, please. Maybe even lose his humanity. That's why the scar is vertical. It's the perfect symbolic seal. It's not carved across the eye like a wound, it's down the middle, like something deliberately shut. And that connects beautifully with Oda's pattern of hiding future power-ups behind self-restraint. Luffy's fruit wasn't awakened until he literally died. Sanji's exoskeleton didn't kick in until his emotions broke. Zoro's demon form might be sleeping behind that eye until a moment when unleashing it becomes the only way forward. So yeah, the scar might be actually a door. Alright, buckle in. Because if you thought Zoro's eye being sealed was cool, wait until you see how deep this rabbit hole goes. See, in One Piece, Oda constantly borrows from real-world mythology. He repurposes them to tell symbolic stories about willpower, sacrifice, and destiny. And when you apply that lens to Zoro's left eye, the pieces start to click. Let's start with the name Ashura. In Buddhist lore, Asuras are beings who live in a state of perpetual conflict, fallen demigods who once challenged the heavens themselves. They fight for what they believe in, even when it destroys them. That's Zoro in a nutshell. His drive to become the world's greatest swordsman is a curse he willingly carries. But there's more. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, the eye is a symbol of awareness. The third eye, often depicted in deities like Shiva, represents spiritual vision, the power to see truth beyond illusion. It's associated with awakening, enlightenment, and, in some cases, destructive clarity. Sound familiar? Zoro's eye could literally be Oda's version of that, a dormant spiritual sight. Now think about how Oda named Zoro's post-Enma attack King of Hell. The King of Hell, Enma-O, in Japanese Buddhist mythology, is the judge of souls, the ruler of the underworld. And what's the name of Zoro's cursed sword? Enma. This is Oda screaming that Zoro's journey is about walking the border between life and death, heaven and hell, human and demon. And what's the one thing all gods, demons, and prophets in Oda's world share? Eyes are how he shows willpower made visible. Luffy's eyes shift when Nika awakens. Imu's eyes glow like void stars. The Gorosei's animal forms have distinct divine eyes. Mihawk's hawk eyes see everything. In One Piece, eyes are windows to will. So imagine Zoro's sealed left eye as the inverse of Mihawk's. Mihawk's eyes see all. Zoro's left eye sees what shouldn't be seen. A darkness so strong it needed to be sealed away. Now here's where it gets mythic and kinda chilling. There's a Norse god named Odin. Yeah, spelled Odin, not Odin. Though you know Oda did that on purpose. Odin sacrificed his eye for wisdom, plunging it into the well of Mimir to gain knowledge of all things. He literally traded half his sight for enlightenment. And what does Zoro do right before the time skip? He kneels before Mihawk. His pride, his arrogance, his sense of self, all sacrificed for one thing: mastery. That's Oda's parallel. Zoro sacrificed an eye, not for power, but for clarity. He lost physical sight to gain spiritual vision. But Oda, being the mad genius he is, doesn't just stop at myth. He ties it to legacy. Ryuma, the sword god of Wano, was known for slaying a dragon, an act that echoes both Japanese folklore and spiritual ascension. Ryuma's eyes in every depiction are shadowed. The man whose will lived inside Zoro's sword, Shusui, might have passed something down, a dormant spirit, a will of a sword god. So what if that's what Mihawk helped Zoro seal? Not just a demon, but the will of Ryuma himself, a spirit too powerful to control until Zoro proves worthy. Because when you connect all of this, the myth of Odin's eye, the Asura manifestation, the Enma connection, the King of Hell epithet, there's one theme: sacrifice for enlightenment, power through restraint. Zoro offered his eye, the swordsman who challenged gods and won, the demon who learned restraint, the human who became legend. And in that instant, the entire world will understand what it truly means when someone says, "Nothing happened," because everything finally will. And so, the eye remains closed. One small line across Zoro's face, silent, unblinking, waiting. It's been years since the time skip, and the story keeps moving forward. Luffy's the sun god, Nika reborn. The world government trembles, the ancient weapons stir. But Zoro's eye? Still shut, still hiding something Oda refuses to explain. Because when the seal finally breaks, it'll mean the age of demons has returned. The age of men strong enough to face gods? Think about what that could mean for the final saga. Imu, a shadowy ruler controlling the light of the world. Luffy, the sun that will burn that shadow away, and standing between them, just like always, Roronoa Zoro, the blade that splits heaven from hell. He doesn't need a devil fruit. He doesn't need lineage, prophecy, or destiny. His power has always come from within, from the very thing that One Piece itself is built on, will. The will of D may carry freedom, but the will of Zoro carries resolve. When his eye opens, it'll be the moment that everything hidden behind Oda's symbols comes into view. The cursed swords, the one-eyed gods, the balance between light and dark that's been teased since the beginning. Zoro's eye may be the missing half of the series' greatest secret, the truth of how haki itself connects to the ancient powers of the world, because the eye judges. And who else but the king of hell could stand beside the sun god when the final judgment arrives? Every step Zoro's taken, from East Blue to Wano, from losing Quina to mastering Enma, has led to this unseen moment. And that's the genius of Oda's storytelling. He makes us stare at the obvious, only to hide divinity in the smallest detail. So the next time you see Zoro's eye in a panel, a close-up, a flash of shadow, remember this. He is watching the world change, waiting for the right time to open. And when it does, the seas will roar, the heavens will split, and the strongest swordsman alive will finally take his place, not as a man, but as a myth. Because that's the truth Oda's been holding for decades. Zoro's left eye is closed because the world isn't ready for what's behind it. And when the time comes, when the seal breaks and the eye opens, One Piece itself may never be the same again.